Da 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 da. Hey everybody, this is Alyssa Lauer. She will be answering your questions and giving your comments so I can get to them on the show. This is the Invisible Man for the House of Horrors analysis number 103, which is I've done all 10 movies, watched and made my notes for the first the Invisible Man part, and then we have, I can't remember how many there are, but there's 15 to 20 additional pieces which I'll do for the next show, or 2 shows. And so I'll be talking about those and how those movies will work into me doing the House of Horrors film, which hopefully will happen one day. There's so much material, sometimes it feels like it's impossible, but I will eventually get there. And so, yeah, so we're answering your questions and comments from previous shows and the ones put up for this one. And then I'll go over my 10 movies. You don't have the list of the 10 movies.
I do indeed.
Woot!
That's why I'm the super assistant.
She is the super assistant. I don't have to actually. All right, so what we'll do is I'll do 2 movies, and then we'll take some questions, and I'll do 2 movies. And I'm going to go through all 10, and some of them I've talked about in more detail on my previous shows, 102 and 101. But I will kind of recap the whole thing as I go. So we start with The Invisible Man, the Universal film, the most famous one with Claude Rains. I mean, one, it was kind of shocking on how great of a film this actually was. The story was good, the acting was good, the production was good. The only little quip I had was during a spree when he's using his abilities to kind of mess and kill a bunch of people. At one point, he like makes a train go off the train tracks, and I don't know why he had to be invisible to do that, where he could have just run up and pulled the switch and killed everybody. But other than that, like, that was my only, which is such a minor thing. The movie is solid as it was. And yeah, I definitely, if you haven't seen it, I definitely recommend it. It definitely is a strong piece. Let's see. Next one is Memoirs of the Invisible Man. Now, this is based on a different novel, starring Chevy Chase, directed by John Carpenter, bad guy Sam Neill, and I believe it was Daryl Hannah as the heroine. Really kind of cool film for what it was. I could see where Carpenter, because this is actually one of the films that Carpenter did not put his name above the title because the studio had so much influence with it. He felt it wasn't exactly his. He was just a work for hire versus being the creative thrive for it. But it was kind of fun to see Chevy Chase in just a straightforward role with a little humor to it, but pretty much the straightforward hero guy, which I think most people didn't like at the time just because they didn't want to see him doing anything but, you know, Chevy Chase, the National Lampoon stuff. But the visual effects and things that they did at the time, I think this was very early 90s, really still kind of hold up today. Though I've got some more modern ones that eventually I get to in the list. If you want to find the list, you can go to House of Horrors. There's a fan page, and then there's the top entry has a list of all the stuff that I've been studying, and just scroll to the bottom to see what the most recent is. But yeah, great film. Sam Neill was excellent, and of course this was before Sam Neill really had blown up yet. So he was kind of just a darker bad guy, and obviously he built a relationship with Carpenter because he ended up doing Mouth of Madness with Carpenter. So Carpenter did enjoy working with him because he's just such a phenomenal actor, and he has such a unique personality that opens itself or lends itself to horror really, really well. So there's that. So let's do some questions and comments.
Okay, these are the ones that I did not see on Johnny's page because I was working off the Darkstone page. Apologies to everyone. So this first one is from Matthew Ewald.
Ewald.
Yay!
I know him.
With your version of The Invisible Man, will you be dealing with the idea of the character going mad because of it, loss of insanity, or will his turn transformation already be set by the time the audience is introduced?
Well, it ties into my version so far at this point, which could always change. Ties into another monster a little bit. So I will say that he might not be that sane before they do the experiment, because they know when they do the experiment, it makes you insane, basing off of the novel. So that's as much as I can really give in that regard. But yeah. Next question.
Well, we have a comment from Jimmy Johansson.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I won't be saying this correctly, but he says Royce Havla Mongo, which automatically translated means Royce bloody moron.
Okay, I have no idea.
I don't know what we had said at that moment.
What he was actually commenting on. Royce was here, right?
He was here.
Yeah.
So I don't know what.
Well, I agree. Bloody moron for Royce. This is true. Yeah, I don't know what that actually meant, but knowing Royce, it's probably fitting. All right, next.
Ready for Stephen Har?
Stephen Har, welcome back to the show.
In this day and age, if there is such a thing as an invisible man, can he defeat such a thing courtesy of artificial skin?
If there's an invisible man, can he defeat artificial skin? Oh, like if they add artificial skin, would it take it over?
Yeah. Or if he could put that on him?
Yes, the idea is that it's in his blood system. So like if he puts food in his body, once it's digested, even though it was obviously it's separate cells, that they turn invisible eventually anyway once they go into his colon. Once it leaves, or actually even happens, I think, in the stomach. So I would imagine if the artificial skin sticks and it adapts to your body, then yeah, it would probably turn it invisible. Unless it was a prosthetic or something like that, then that would not. I think living organisms. All right, next movie is a double feature, Mandroid and Invisible, The Chronicles of Benjamin Knight. The reason why I did both these movies together is because it's kind of like one long story. Where there is a robot that can be controlled by mind. They put on a helmet and they can make a robot move and do stuff by thought, which is the main story of Mandroid. But in the first film, Benjamin Knight gets knocked into some chemicals and he turns invisible. So that carries over directly to the second film, where he and the Mandroid kind of team up together to go on these missions. And yeah, I mean they're definitely they're low budget, early 90s, but they're a lot of fun because they use a lot of the imagery you would see from the Universal Invisible Man movies, which is always cool. And then it kind of has a it's full moon, which obviously speaks to me a lot in a lot of ways. So having that attached to it is always cool as well. Now, the one big difference in the science of it is that in this version, which is the first version, he can actually take a drug and make it go back to being human again, or not human, but he can be seen. So he has a drug that can make him not seen and a drug that can make him seen, or something. I can't remember exactly how it works, but he can go back and forth. So that's the first film to do that successfully, because there's other movies that they attempt it, but it doesn't work, or it causes problems. But this one, he can actually go back and forth with triggering the chemicals in his body. But yeah, I definitely recommend them. It's they're very nostalgic for me, and if you haven't seen them, I would suggest it. Next question.
All right, we have a question from Rhonda Hicken.
Rhonda.
You said that in your can.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that after the experiments that made the first man invisible, it has made the man invisible for life? No way out of it. Which is kind of like what you were talking about.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on. Insofar as the book is concerned, I think there was no reversal. Once he was turned invisible, each movie kind of handles that differently, but the majority of them kind of look at it as like the Wolfman curse. Once you have it, you're stuck with it. Memoirs of the Invisible Man, he couldn't turn back. The original Invisible Man and the Invisible Man Returns, he couldn't turn back until he died, essentially. But they do deal with that the process, like they get turned, and then sometimes they're really focused on going back in the later films that I watched. So yeah, it basically depends. I would probably go with the original storyline as being my influence for House of Horrors, so I will say that they probably cannot turn back. They're kind of stuck.
Okay, we have one from Kenneth Tabor.
Welcome, Kenneth.
What is it about the Universal movies that still hold up?
Well, it's kind of like why those stories hold up. Like they're told in such a way that they work as a period piece. So even that you're presenting kind of like fables in a way, like, you know, usually they're always based on like science, and man does something with science that goes too far and causes problems. That's most of the Universal films kind of deals with that, with the exception of Dracula and the Wolfman. But Creature in the Black Lagoon, the science got him in trouble. Invisible Man, science got him in trouble. Hyde got him in trouble. Frankenstein got him in trouble. Like, it's a very common thing, which we still deal with today, over people arguing over stem cell research. Like, just that. Like, it's a science that goes against what religion feels is good or bad, or works against stuff. And those movies deal with that in the 1800s, or when the books were written, and then in the early 1900s. So it's actually a common thread that science moves as fast as it does, that there's the fear that it's going too far. So I think the moral of each story still holds up today because we're still dealing with those issues. And also they're just well presented. So I think that's why people like going back and watching them, because period pieces that are made today try to look like the Universal films. So that would be my guess. All right, so next movie, The Invisible Man Returns. I think after seeing all 10, this one might be my favorite of the bunch of the 10. This is Vincent Price plays the Invisible Man. It's a direct continuation of the original Universal film, where I believe a descendant, I think it's the son of Griffin from the first one, is experimenting, and his friend, played by Vincent Price, is being put on death row and just trying to prove his innocence, because he actually was innocent. But he takes the drug, and the drug it turns him invisible, but also causes him to go crazy, and they're dealing with, you know, someone they care about, but at the same time he's a villain at that point because he's gone so mad. One of the best parts about it is where he tells his antagonist that at 10 o'clock tonight I will kill you, and there's nothing you can do in between now and then to stop me from doing it. And no spoilers, but obviously the whole third act is about trying to avoid death. But no, it was very well done. It was very cool. Vincent Price was amazing. It's definitely my favorite of the Universal franchise, of the Invisible Man series. Next question.
Okay, good thing I printed this out because my computer is malfunctioning.
Mm.
I know. Okay, Casey Shafsky says, "Why are you so badass?"
I don't know the answer to that one. But thank you. That's very kind.
And then she has another question. How many action figures of Matthew Ewald does Matthew Ewald own?
Oh, I think he's probably got one of each, I would imagine. He might have some duplicates, but I mean, if you had action figures made of you'd probably collect them all as well. I know this one's got a couple of them.
I have some Matthew Ewald.
Yeah, I have one too. But yeah, I think he probably has a good deal of those, because I mean, why wouldn't you?
Oh, I would so love to have an action figure of myself.
Oh God, yeah.
Or a Pez dispenser of myself. That would be so
Was
cool.
there a Pez of him?
No.
Oh, there wasn't.
Mm-mm.
Oh, okay, then he'd be important. But since he doesn't have the Pez dispenser, he's not.
Yeah,
not
a
quite there. Just those McDonald's Happy Meals things.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. But if it was Burger King, that would be different. But he's McDonald's, so let's calm down, people. All right, next question.
Stephen Har.
Stephen.
Is the Invisible Man the Matrix?
No. I kind of see where he's going with that. But no. I think Matrix obviously is heavily based in computer technology science. Well, no, not science, but computer technology versus chemical technology, which is what the Invisible Man's based off of. So I think he's more chemical, where the Matrix is more computer oriented. So I'm going to say in cyberspace, and I'm going to say no. Next movie, Cloak and Dagger. This was a mistake. I saw this movie as a kid and thought it was about Invisible Man, but instead the movie was actually about a imaginary friend. So I thought he was invisible. Technically, he was. Nobody else could see him because he wasn't real. So this was a mistake. But in studies, you have to take all the roads and try different things out and see new stuff. Cloak and Dagger, great movie, sad movie. Henry Thomas, obviously, right after E.T. and doing his whole thing. But yes, not about Invisible Man. Next question.
Well, you've kind of already answered this one, but Stephen Har, have you seen The Invisible Man Return starring Vincent Price?
Yes, definitely my favorite of the bunch. Next movie, The Invisible Woman. This is the third film in the franchise. I believe has no connection to the storyline of the previous films, where it's just straightforward comedy, which it's a very good comedy. But I believe it's a new scientist comes up with a new way of making somebody invisible, and I think this is the first film in the Universal franchise where they actually turn them back without killing them, because I think at the end she was able to find a way to turn back, and it doesn't make her crazy. So the science is completely different. It was like a weird thing where like you step behind the sheet and radiation or something to that effect like does it versus a chemical base. I believe there was an injection first to kind of make it all work, but it was like chemical and radiation. Oh, yes, that's good luck. When I burp on these shows, they always go well. Then what else was it? One of the coolest cameo, or the two cameos in the film that were awesome. One, the maid of the house of the scientist was the Wicked Witch of the West from Wizard of Oz, and one of the henchmen that are chasing him around is Shemp from the Three Stooges, the one who replaced Curly when Curly passed. So seeing those guys in there, and there's a lot of really good stunt comedy in it, of course, because that time period that was the thing, and really, really good watch. Doesn't really relate to what I'm doing with House of Horrors, but it was kind of cool to see it and, give you ideas of how they do some of the invisible gags. Next question.
Okay, Stephen Har.
Steven.
The Invisible Man, the greatest hide-and-seek champion since Bigfoot and Waldo.
Yeah, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
I've always wanted to do a painting of, I can't paint, so maybe I'll do I'll get Royce to do it. A chateau in Paris with the Eiffel Tower way off in the distance outside of a window or one of those open balconies. And there's a bed, and there's two people obviously in the bed, and you just kind of see the sheets. There's two people in there. And on the floor is Carmen Sandiego's hat and jacket and Waldo's jacket, and it just says, "I found you." Just thought that would be like a cool. So somebody do that. Somebody make that happen. I think that'd be a great poster. Another one I have, this is going really deep into nerdom, is two Skrulls from the Marvel Universe staring at the imagery from the Thing of the head that's coming off the body and becoming its own creature. And one of the Skrulls looking at the other one saying, "I'm not going to do that." Like, that's a very Marvel Universe joke. But those are the two paintings I think would be awesome. Or memes, or however we do it. All right, so next movie, Hollow Man. Surprisingly good. I hadn't seen it since it came out, and I kind of wrote it off when it came out as just like a kind of a bad horror movie. But going back and looking at it, it's quite good. And many faces. One of the coolest ones was Parkman from Heroes is like a very skinny young buck in this movie, and he's in it quite a bit. And that was really, really cool. And then Josh Brolin, this is before he did, you know, it was after Goonies, obviously, but before he blew up, you know, how he is today. He was the kind of the not the lead. They kind of did a role reversal where the girl's more the lead action hero and he's kind of the sidekick, or the not damsel in distress, but they were. He's very secondary to the girl, Elizabeth Shue. This one was all about the technology of turning invisible. It doesn't make you crazy, but the problem that they had is that they actually gave the drug to somebody who was already a bad guy. He didn't seem as bad, but the second he got that power of being able to do what he wants, the first thing he does and goes and rapes a girl. So obviously not a good dude. He gets a little stir crazy because he's locked up for so long. As they're trying to figure out how to turn him back, because they thought they could because it worked on a gorilla, but it didn't work on him. So he kind of gets a little stir crazy, and then action ensues. But the visual effects are cool. The concept is good. The storyline's great. It's definitely, if you haven't seen it, or if you haven't seen it in a while, I'd suggest going back and watching it because it is surprisingly good.
Stephen Haar.
Steven.
Would throwing flour at the invisible man so you know where he is or assume where he is help you cause to see him?
Yes.
Help your cause.
I believe they've done that a couple times, and actually in Hollow Man, she throws blood.
Oh yeah.
Everywhere. It's because that's what she has right beside her to do it. And it throws blood, and that's the only way that they can kind of figure out where he is. The other cameo in it, the girl who actually gets raped, is I guess the best. I don't know her by name, but she was in Doomsday, and is the lead girl in the third Underworld movie. And I've always really liked her. She was on Boston Legal and the Gates TV show. She was really, really good in those roles. So it's kind of cool to see her again in a very young, quick role. But it's a good cameo. Next question.
Stephen Haar.
Steven.
If you X-ray an invisible man, could the X-ray see his bones?
I would think no. Heat vision, because obviously the body gives off heat, so with heat they can see an invisible man. But since the X-ray is just it's seeing past flesh, but seeing bones, but his bones are invisible as well, it would probably just go right through. But there probably would be something like a ghost image kind of a thing. Where there would be something's not quite right, as if nothing was there. It would be a very different picture. So I would say no for seeing the bones, but there'd probably be something to it. Next movie, The Invisible Agent. This is part 4 in the Universal franchise. This one is a really change of pace, but is a direct sequel to the franchise. This is the grandson of Griffin from the first film, has the drug, but doesn't have a perfected drug that doesn't make you crazy, and it gets taken into World War II, I believe at the time. They're going after Hitler. He injects it and kind of joins the army and kind of works as an invisible agent. And I believe he's able to turn back as well. So they've solved the non-crazy and being able to turn yourself back, but it's very much a action comedy, and has a really good cameo from Peter Lorre as a mobster, which is really, really cool. It's a good, fun film. It's not very dark. It's very, very light, especially with the guy who looks a lot like Hitler but is not Hitler. And I remember one of the funny things is that at that time, we didn't in Hollywood anyway, they didn't quite understand what a German accent was. So the guys with German accents, they're not speaking like they normally would, like random American accent, but they have some weird, crazy accent and they're loud because they didn't, all they had at the time was those video or film of Hitler giving speeches, but not speaking in English. So that was kind of fun to see, and I believe this was actually shot during World War II. Like it was after Pearl Harbor, but before the war had ended. So it's a very specific time that a film where they were just trying to entertain anyone, and this one was very pro-war. So I'd imagine that this film got its funding, you know, trying to get more people to sign up for war, because World War II, we were running out of people pretty quick. And so this was the time where they're just desperately trying to get people. I believe there was a draft for World War II and of course Vietnam. But I don't think the draft was quite as heavy as it was in Vietnam as it in World War II. There was one, but it wasn't quite like pulling 18-year-olds and 17-year-olds where Vietnam did. So yeah, it was an interesting time if you really think about the time the movie was made and what they were doing on the franchise, because more than any of the other Universal films, because they all kind of go back to like the late 1800s as their storyline and their setting. This one really embraced the time that it was made in and was very specific to that time of during the war. So feelings were very fresh and very lively, but they also made comedy and made it like an action, a very positive thing, versus focusing on the negative side, which they would do in movies to this day after the war. But yeah, it's definitely interesting to give it a watch. It is cool that even though the genre and completely changes what the movie is, it is still a direct sequel to the storyline of the first two, which are much more dark and more sinister of films versus the lightheartedness of this one. The third one is a complete comedy, but it's a very standalone thing. You don't need to see or know anything of the other ones, but this one's it's cool to see it switch genres so much.
Stephen Har has a statement.
Give me your statement, Stephen.
Monique Dupree is mega awesome. That's all I gotta say about that. I agree.
I agree with this as well.
I know.
Oh, we'll do another one.
Okay. Another one from Stephen Har.
Stephen.
He's our guy tonight.
Hey, Stephen.
Ever thought about releasing a calendar called Nasty Nymphs of Nilbog? Dodgy name, I know. It could change. With each month featuring a female character that's appeared in a Darkstone movie. The calendar itself could appear in your movies.
Jared Kearney and I are working on, not quite that, but we are working on a calendar of, we've done a few months already, but we're working on a calendar of the D-Girls, and they represent films that have been made, but they're not specific characters to the film, but they are representing it. So we are doing a D-Girl calendar that hopefully will be ready for next year, because we've done maybe 4 or 5 of them now, and so we've only got like 7, 8 left or something to that effect. So hopefully we'll get that ready, but we are working on one, but not quite Nasty Nymph. That's trauma. Darkstone is Classy Nymph. It's very different.
Yeah, that classy always comes to mind when I think of Darkstone.
Yeah, we're the classy smut versus the nasty smut. If you have to subgenre your smut. Yeah, let's do another one.
All right, another one from
Steven.
But Kenneth is on.
So okay.
We're getting to him too.
All right.
Just want to mention that I threw in the gravy nuggets line in the project I'm doing right now, and yes, it did involve the use of a toilet.
Oh, good, good. That's great. That's awesome. All right, let's do another question before we get to the ninth film.
It's not quite a question, but Stephen Har, just want to give a shout out to Kenny Say. Wishing you all the best. Get well soon, mate. Yeah,
agreed. Kenny, hope you're feeling better. It looks like things were getting more positive as of late, but hopefully it'll stay on that upslope. All right, so the human vapor.
Oh, wait. Let's do a question then.
Is it about human vapor?
Yes.
Okay, we'll do that question.
Kenneth Tabor, hello, I'm late. Did you watch The Human Vapor?
Yes, I did. Just a few nights ago. Yeah, not quite the Invisible Man. He has more of the abilities of kind of like Dracula when Dracula turns into mist. Actually, he's probably even more powerful than that because he can actually kill and strangle, where Dracula can only travel in mist. It also really reminded me of Phantom of the Opera a little bit. It was kind of like this mix of The Invisible Man and Phantom of the Opera. but it was definitely fun. It was uh, I guess it was 60s. It definitely resembled 50s, 60s, but I don't know when exactly it was shot. I'm thinking later 60s. But definitely enjoyed the film. It was definitely something that's very different from the films I had been watching, which is great. Oh man, I am sorry. I'm just sponsored by Red Bull. It's good luck. It was twice the luck.
I smell Red Bull all of a sudden.
Yeah, I don't know why it's surrounding the whole room. But no, this was also a really cool thing because Kenneth had mailed me a copy of the movie, so I wouldn't have to go track it down, and I will be returning the copy because I know it's your specific copy, and thank you for that. And I guess we'll be seeing you as an extra on Lovecraft, and I'll get it back to you that day. She will not let me forget.
Don't worry, I got it.
Yep. But no, thank you for letting me watch it. I actually watched it with Jared Kearney and Donnie Sturgis on when we wrapped. We watched it Thursday night after we wrapped shooting. So we were all staying at Jared's because we were going to a cave the next day that was closer to his house. So we watched it together and we had a good time. It was a lot of fun. But it definitely had a Phantom of the Opera feel, which I liked a lot, and especially in the ending. Yeah, let's do some more questions.
Okay, Kenneth Tabor, I love how he messed with the Nazis in The Invisible Agent.
Mm-hmm.
What was your favorite part?
Trying to think. I know he did. There's so many gags. He did like the fork. He did the tripping. I guess it was one of the pratfalls that the not Hitler but Hitler did. Where he was coming in and just kind of like it was very Three Stooges, where it got just more and more messed up. Also, actually, the technical side when he's parachuting in and taking off all his clothes to become invisible as he's parachuting in was kind of a cool effect. And so I'll say that. I'll say that was my favorite part. It was very cool. Next question.
Kenneth Tabor. Also in The Human Vapor.
Yep.
I really like the fact that he honey badgered like mad. Didn't care at all.
Oh yeah, he killed so many people. And actually, one of the coolest things about Japanese movies is they have so many extras in every shot. Like their set dressing is just a plain room, like a plain hallway, but they fill it with people. So their set dressing is just people. Constantly there's just a massive amount of dudes trying to get through different places and stuff like that, and it really kind of gave a claustrophobic feel to the film, but at the same time you had kind of the vapor mist that can kind of get through anything, so like you can't trap it, but all the camera angles definitely felt like it was trapping. One of the things I noticed is that when they got into the flashbacks, to present it in a flashback, they did it very minutely by taking the camera and putting it on tilt for all the flashbacks, but it doesn't do it for anything else in the film. Versus, American films would do like black and white or a haze to it or a fade or shots of flashes of jumps. But they just took the camera and just put it on tilt for all the flashbacks inside the lab, and that was kind of cool. But yes, next question.
Okay, I want to see this movie. Stephen Haar. What are the chances that the imaginary friend you once had way back when was indeed an invisible man?
Uh-huh.
That's cool.
I think Supernatural did the storyline on that this year, the TV show, where the invisible friends were actual creatures, but they just can't be seen unless they want to be seen. But that it would definitely be terrifying if you found out your imaginary friend was real. I've actually written a script about that, where invisible detective is hunting someone who just knows him so well and knows so much from his childhood and can't figure out who it is until he realizes it's actually his imaginary friend who's pissed that he was forgotten. I wrote it as a short story in high school. I should definitely make a movie out of that eventually, because that's kind of a cool story. And I think ICP had done a song about it too. I think that was kind of like that too. But yeah, so it's a scary idea. that what you think isn't real actually is real. That they don't do a whole lot of that. Usually, it's what you think is real isn't real, but like the reversal, which is kind of cool. Last movie on my list, The Invisible Man's Revenge. This is the final film in the Universal film franchise, which is a weird one because it kind of takes place in an alternate reality. It's the same guy from The Invisible Agent, but he has no affiliation to the medicine. He actually comes across John Carradine, who has come up with a way of doing it on his own and gives it to him. It goes back to a darker feel. It's not quite as lighthearted as the previous two, where he's kind of the murdering sort, and it gets a little convoluted, like on why he's like he bumped his head and lost his memory, and then bumped his head and regained his memory, and these people owe him a bunch of money from a diamond farm that they found. It gets very, very detailed. But he's basically just a crazy batshit guy before he takes the drug, and the drug does not make him more crazy. He just starts killing everybody or trying to kill everybody. Yeah, it's not the strongest. Definitely the best scene in the movie is more of a lighthearted scene where he gets this kind of bumbling guy to throw darts and for money so they can make some money for food. And he's actually obviously taking the dart out of his hand and making it hit the target, running with it. That was a really well played out scene, but the rest of the movie was kind of lacking. More than I've felt for any Universal film that I've come across so far. This one felt like it was lacking the most. Maybe eventually, years from now, I'll watch it again and find something that I missed. But yeah, but the fact that it doesn't really connect to any of the previous movies, it's standalone-ish, but not as a reboot. It's just kind of like a weird, like they were just kind of calling it in, and it's the same actor from The Invisible Agent. So if it would be the last one to watch on the series, I've been lucky because when I did Creature from the Black Lagoon, other than the Creature from the Black Lagoon movies, swamp monster movies were primarily bad movies. So it was a lot of bad movies, where these haven't been quite like that. They've actually been pretty solid. So, but now I'm about to go into my additionals, which gets a little off the beaten path, and we'll find I'll probably be tortured a little bit and tell you about it. All right, so let's finish up the questions because I got all the movies.
Kenneth Tabor, I heard that a lot of people assumed that the Invisible Agent was real. Did you hear anything on that?
I did not. That there, like during World War II, somebody had figured out how to make somebody invisible. I know. I remember when Predator came out, there was a lot of talk of like how that could work inside, like if there was a way to reflect light. But it wouldn't really work if they were standing right beside you. This would just be in the distance.
Well, there's kind of a part two.
Oh, give me the part two.
The way they did propaganda films, and someone mistook it as one of those.
Oh, okay. No, I didn't know that. It makes sense. I mean, this was also around the same time period as, well, this is 40s, but like I think it was 38 that Orson Welles
War of the Worlds.
War of the Worlds, and everybody thought it was real because because they didn't say this is fake. Like I think every radio drama before that, they would always say like, this is not real, here's our show. But then with that one, they're like, they didn't say it wasn't real, and so everybody just believed it was real, and like New York went into a panic. So I could see where they might think special effects at that time were much more mind-boggling than they are today. Next question.
Stephen Hart.
Stephen.
Do you think Johnny Depp will do The Invisible Man any justice?
I don't have high hopes, but I mean, I don't feel like they shouldn't do the movie, because you keep playing in the fantasy world and it'll make other movies happen. So, but I don't know which one they're doing, or if they're just rebooting it, or if they're doing the H.G. Wells novel, or if they're just doing something very different, which I would prefer. Because we got the H.G. Wells novel many, many times over. So, like, it would be fun if they just did something else with an Invisible Man. But I mean, as an actor, he'll be fine. I don't see anyone else. I mean, well, there's so many actors that could be great. but I'm not really looking forward to it, but I definitely will watch it and hope to be surprised. Next.
Stephen Hart.
Steven.
Who or what other horror icon would be an equal match against Invisible Man?
An equal match? Probably the Wolfman, because I think the Wolfman could smell him and could tell he's in the room, and is so fast that it would be harder for the Invisible Man to like run up and hit him and then get away from him, because he's got the animal reflexes. So I would definitely see the Wolfman and the Invisible Man having a little bit of a stalemate, because I think the Wolfman would know he's there, but not be able to like really, see him per se.
What about a vampire? Because they have like super great vision, but they never really delved into something that's invisible.
Yeah, it depends on the lore of the vampire, because there's some like where they just like, if somebody cuts their finger, the vampire immediately smells the blood and knows that where you're at, or if you take the Lord's name in vain or any of that stuff. But then also they could hear heartbeats sometimes. So I don't know. It depends on the lore of the vampire. I think actually the vampire would have probably more. They would be able to take the Invisible Man a lot easier than, because if it's Dracula, he just turns into mist, and the mist fills the room. He knows where the Invisible Man is.
And he's also very fast too.
Right.
And I think more on the ball than say the Wolfman, who they don't really seem to be like. I know vampires always seem like pretty smart.
Yeah.
Where Wolfman just seems
they're
like
just wild.
Machines,
Yeah. Yeah, the Wolfman is just basically no matter what monster you are, you're just avoiding him and trying to get ahead of him.
Right.
So you can get him. Because if you get too close, unless you're Frankie.
He's gonna kill you big.
You gotta just kind of do that. It really depends on how powerful Dracula is, which I think in the most later movies they made him way too powerful than the book. The book says he's got the strength of 10 men, and that's it. Like he can turn into mist, bat, wolf.
And he could do mind stuff too. You know how they always kind of hypnotize you to just like be still or do stuff?
Right.
So I would imagine that would work with the Invisible Man. I would think.
If he can look him in the eye.
Look into my eyes.
Yeah.
See me.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, it's Dracula definitely would have the most advantage, but I would say on an equal playing field, I would say Wolfman. I think Dracula's got the advantage on him. All right. Next question.
Another one. Kenneth Tabor. Johnny Depp would do any character justice. However, I think he will do it old school. What do you think, Johnny?
Yeah, I mean, my guess is that things that seem to attract him are the original material. However, whatever he did with Dark Shadows was very off the beaten path. So far as what Barnabas was. So it really also depends on the filmmaker behind it. But I mean, yeah, like I said, I don't have high hopes, but I definitely will watch it and hope for the best.
Stephen Har says, no one, not even Depp, could outdo Gene Wilder's performance as Willy Wonka. The less said about the Lone Ranger, the better, and don't get me started on Mordecai.
Oh, yeah, well, with that, I think that was more Tim Burton's bad than Johnny Depp. Johnny Depp was just doing what Tim Burton, his buddy, was like, come, let's make this movie. I think that they kind of just went the wrong direction with how that movie would be perceived, and I think that's why so many people didn't like it. And Gene Wilder is an amazing talent, and that's a hard one to even fathoming trying to top. The only thing you could try to do is do it different enough where it doesn't feel like you're mimicking. But I think where Willy Wonka went wrong is that they just went the wrong direction with the style of the film, which caused everything to go kind of bad.
Okay, Kenneth Tabor said, I said justice, not great, LOL. And then Stephen Har counters with no justice in those performances, though.
Yeah, they weren't the strongest.
And then Kenneth Tabor, sorry, I'm late and all over the board. The Invisible Man's Revenge was lacking, and I think it is why I stopped until Invisible Man meets Abbott and Costello.
That's on. I will be watching that. That is on my list after when the additional. So I will be watching it because The Abbott and Costellos are definitely ones that I would do. There is a series that I found on Hulu that's free, that delves in, that I've put in onto my list. I missed some on my previous list, so I've actually gone back and like watched them. It's called 100 Years of Horror, and it's hosted by Christopher Lee. And each episode is about 40 minutes long, and it deals with each monster in its various forms. Invisible Man and Phantom of the Opera got lumped into one, so it's Invisible Things and Phantoms. So there is a section on that, but he does a Wolfman, Frankenstein, Dracula, Hyde, all kinds of stuff, and it's all free. But I would definitely recommend it to you guys. I'm watching them as I get to them in the proceedings, but after I do get through the whole thing, I'm going to watch the whole series because it's Christopher Lee just detailing monsters, and it's fantastic.
Ready?
I'm ready.
All right. Stephen Hart.
Stephen.
I could just imagine the Punisher getting his hands on the Invisible Man power.
Oh, yeah.
It'll sure make his work a lot more easier.
But unless he can make his gun invisible, or guns, because he seems to have so many guns and bullets on him at all times. If he can't make those invisible, I don't know how well that would work for him, unless he just starts stealthily going around stabbing people. But I started the Daredevil season 2, and highly impressed with what they've done. Thomas Jane was my favorite Punisher, just because you could tell how much he loved the character, and I love Thomas Jane. But the new guy Shane from Walking Dead is doing great, so I'm happy with it. Next
one. All right, I just refreshed it, so just gonna make it sure it's from Rhonda Hicken.
Rhonda.
Yay, Rhonda. Okay, it's refreshing. Get back down where I gotta be. The Dark Gift is different for everyone.
Oh, I'm guessing it's just different abilities. Like if you actually gain if the invisibility, the power doesn't actually make you crazy, the drug doesn't make you crazy. With Hollow Man, the power is what sent him over the edge to become a rapist and a murderer. And there's probably a lot of people that if you just give them an ability, it would probably end badly for people around them, just because they just need that one little push to bring them into if the scariest thing on Earth would be if a meteor is going to hit the planet and destroy it, but everybody knows about that 18 days before it comes. This is not a planet you would want to be walking around on, because I think just that little bit for the average not the average person, but a good portion, a good majority of people, it's like, all right, I'm dead in 18 days. I'm gonna just do the fuck what I want. And I think just the murder, mayhem, rape, everything would just go bad. So I think the Invisible Man kind of or Hollow Man specifically deals with that, where just given that special ability caused him to just let all of his darkness out. Do you have any more questions?
We do. Rhonda Hicken. The
Rhonda.
Dark Gift is a line from Lestat for a vampire.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've read the first 2 books, and then I started reading the 3rd one, but then it wasn't really about Louis and Lestat as much, and so it was like this period piece. So I followed off the series, but I definitely enjoyed the first 2 a lot. And then one of the things that I wanted to see in the films that they kind of avoided was turning the interviewer gets turned into a vampire, and is actually a part of the vampire Lestat in the 2nd book. And the fact that they didn't do that, and the Dark Gift that you're referring to is each vampire once made has different abilities. Some can read thoughts, some can fly. Where Louis didn't get a whole lot of anything other than the speed and power. But yeah, it's very cool.
Okay, Kenneth Tabor. So far, I have found so many versions of the Invisible Man that I had no clue even existed.
Sure, me too.
This research is great. Thank you for bringing us along. Is there one that has surprised you so far?
The Invisible Man Returns, did not know Vincent Price was in it. They've actually been this whole run has been very surprising, because I didn't realize how good Hollow Man was. Even I had seen it and I didn't realize how good it was. The comedy of The Invisible Woman was fantastic. And then just a young Vincent Price, and I mean, it's been a good ride with the Invisible Man. So I'm looking for. Now we're gonna dive really deep into the additionals, and I'm gonna do 2 shows because there's like 20 things. So we'll do one when I get through 10 things, and we'll do another one when I finish up whatever the remaining number is. And I will post sooner of the date, and this video will get linked in with it, so you can just go right back to that first post and just click on the video versus waiting for me to post again like it's new. We're kind of testing it out with this, where the video itself will count down to the show, which will be I think helpful with the new technology now that things are actually working again.
Will you still do your song?
Oh yeah. Oh, that's just the start of the show. Oh, of course, I can't do. I have to do the song. Do we have any more questions?
You do. Stephen Har, which of all the horror characters you want in your film will be the most difficult to write for, performance-wise, etc.?
Well, I don't know. Now that I've taken in so much research, I can kind of write like 5 movies about each monster that I've researched because there's so many angles for. The Mummy was always a difficult one, but I have a feeling once I get into that research that it'll just come right out. But I don't think there would be a difficult one. There are definitely ones that I'm afraid of not doing enough justice to them, so that when people watch the film, their favorite monster is represented well. So there is a little bit of that, but at the same time, I'm super excited about it, and I feel like I could write for each one now, especially the ones I've done research for. Creature from the Black Lagoon is the one that doesn't have a whole lot of character to it. Of course, we're not doing the Creature from the Black Lagoon either. It's just a water/swamp creature. So that one we have a little bit more freedom with, but I bet he will be the least of all the monsters. He will be seen and represented, but you never know how he feels or any of that stuff most of the time. So I guess that would be the one that I think would be just coming out of the gate would be the one that would lack the most, just because there isn't enough material, and he's an animal versus an actual man with layers. But we'll see. Once I get into the writing, we'll find out.
Kenneth Tabor, I found the whole series of the Invisible Man series with David McCallum, 1975-76. 13 episodes. If you don't have, I can bring.
I don't have. I know there's some Invisible Man series. There's a newer series that I think is on my roster. I think it was in the 2000s, but I don't know if I'll get through all of it because it's kind of like Swamp Thing, where after 2 seasons, I had enough Swamp Thing, and I got it.
Do you need your additional studies? I didn't give you that part.
Oh no, we haven't got to any of these yet.
Okay.
Looks like there's 16. But yeah, what is the actual? Yeah, it's the Invisible Man TV series. So I think that's the one that you're talking about, the 70s one. I think I was going to look at a more modern one, just to see like what new technology is doing with it. But I might go back and look at the 70s one as well. So we shall see.
So this is from Stephen Har. So what are you being forced to chow down on in the next show, Johnny? I think Alyssa should run a poll. I agree.
Oh, all right. All right.
Maybe,
well,
maybe you have to give like
something
an idea.
Something transparent. We have to think of transparent foods. Gelatin is transparent. When I was in Poland, they have a meal.
Aspic.
Is that what it was called? Yeah, aspic, which is like meat that's in a gelatin. So flavored gelatin. We just got to figure out what flavor the gelatin is. I got 2 shows for that, so we'll do a poll and try not to kill me. But I'm going to cut this a little short now because I've got to go work on getting Gravebit up as quickly as possible. I'm almost done with it, so hopefully tonight or tomorrow I'll be up. The remaining Invisible Man questions we will put into the next show, which by the end of the week I will announce. It'll probably be like 2 to 3 weeks away, just because I have to do 10 things in between that time, and some of that series, which takes a little longer. And then we will do a poll and find out what we're going to be fed into my face. But thanks, guys, and I will catch you on the next show. da 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 da.